What is up, people? In this video, I'm going to be talking about freelancing because a lot of you write to me, send me messages saying, Rahul, I want to be a freelancer as a game designer or a game artist or a game programmer or whatever. I don't want to get a job. I just pretty much want to work at my own pace. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about freelancing when it comes to game development. So let's go. First thing you need to remember, what exactly do you mean by freelancer? A freelancer is one who offers services to someone else for their work hourly basis. Okay. Now, freelancing is something which is prevalent in the game industry, but mostly when it comes to freelancing, artists do freelancing, right? If you go on platforms such as Upwork or Fiverr, you can find game artists who are willing to actually create sprites or create game art, whatever, for a certain project, and you can actually contact them. You can get there, you can, start a conversation with them, and you can give them your brief, and they will deliver the assets, and it works actually quite well. So, as a game artist, working as a freelancer is possible, but do remember that if you want to be a freelancer, if you want to work as a freelancer, you have to compete with a lot of other. Now only talking about game artists, right? We'll talk about designers and programmers much later. You are going to be competing with a lot of other game artists, which means that your standard as a freelancer will need to be quite high, because no one's going to hire you as a beginner because your art quality isn't there. So you will need to reach a certain level of quality. They're going to be looking at your work, they're going to be looking at your portfolio, and once you've reached a high level portfolio, for example, if I'm looking for someone as a game artist, I'm going to try and find someone who's really good art, who's done a lot of projects, who has a lot of good reviews, a lot of good feedback. And on the basis of that, I'm going to start. Now, if you're just beginning out in game dev, maybe you've done a few months, you've made a little bit of a portfolio, you've made a few models, and you're thinking, you know what, let me make money as a freelancer. That's going to be really, really hard because your quality of work and your experience and your portfolio isn't going to be that much. So most successful freelancers, what they do is that for a long time, they have a job, they work at a game company, they work at a game studio, and over a period of time, they actually build up a portfolio of the stuff that they've done while they were working for the company, which they're allowed to show. Remember, you can't be showing stuff outside of your NDA. So the company that you're working for, make sure that you can actually show the game art. If it's a release game that's already out in the market, you can put that in your portfolio. And then at some point, once you have that quality of work, once you have that experience working, then you can actually get into being a freelancer as a game artist, right? Straight off the bat, right out of school, as a beginner, starting as a freelancer, especially as a game artist, is going to be really, really hard. Okay. So also a lot of times I've seen people who go to studios, who actually talk to people contact you, say, hey, listen, I'm building a game. Can you make some game art for me as a concept artist or whatever? I've seen people spending 90% of the time running after people for their money. Okay. It's different if you're on a platform like Upwork or Fiverr or anything like that. You can actually get your money. You have to pay the platform, but you can actually get your money pretty easy. But if you're working directly with someone, trust me, it's really, really frustrating. It's heartbreaking because most times young artists in the game industry are kind of treated like crap. They will make you work, and then they'll have revision upon revision upon revision, and they might say, you know what, this is not working out, sorry, I'm not giving you any money. And then it's happened so many times that freelancers I know have just been chasing after people for their money. It's really heartbreaking. Okay, so directly working with a company is hard. Once you reach a certain point, once you have a certain level of experience, you can actually ask for money in advance, right? If you're that good, you can just be like, give me 50% advance, otherwise I'm not going to work on this project. And if you're good enough, the client will put that money up front and will actually give you that advance money to start. But once again, it'll come at a certain point in your career and not at the beginning of your career. So remember that, especially as a game artist. Now let's talk about designers and programmers. Now, as a designer, remember this. If you want to be a freelance game designer, that's really, really hard because of the primary reason that people, game companies, do not share their ideas. They have very strict NDAs, non disclosure agreements, And very, very few decent game studios will hire a game designer on the outside, because basically you have, as a game designer, you know all about the game. You know about the mechanics, you know about the target market, you have an entire knowledge of what the game is. And game studios do not want that knowledge. They do not want that, give that control to people who are outside of the studio. So even as a game designer, if you're working for a studio, you're going to have a very, very hardcore non-disclosure agreement. You can't even talk about the game, which is why game studios do not normally trust game designers who are freelancers. So, which is why very, very few game designers actually get freelance gigs. Now, the other point is that you can become a consultant for game design, but once again, it takes many, many years to reach that level. So, once again, if you want to be a freelancer at some point in your career as a game designer, get a job, right? Be an awesome game designer, work for several years in a company. And when you're at the point when you're really, really good, when you have a reputation in the market and people know you as a good game designer, then you can kind of freelance with small game studios and say, hey, look, I'm an expert. I'll sign an NDA, pay me 50% advance or pay me money in advance. And then I will consult with you on building games or whatever, right? That happens a reasonable amount, once again, not at the beginning of your career. And it's pretty much the same for programmers as well, because remember, you have the code of the game as a programmer. So very, very few companies are going to hire freelancers. Very few big companies are going to hire freelancers to actually on the outside to write their code. So if you want to be a freelancer as a game programmer, you probably need to have a team and be actually building entire games from scratch. So basically what you're doing is setting up your own outsourcing company where you not only write the code, you also do the programming and you also do the art, right? So you can set up your own company in which you kind of build games for someone else from scratch, end to end. But just writing code by yourself, sitting in your room for someone else, is pretty hard, right? So that is the lowdown on freelancing. In conclusion, you can be a freelancer, especially if you're an artist or especially if you're a designer, but do it much later on in your career. Don't have the mindset that I'm going to join the game industry and I'm going to sit by myself in my room and I'm going to be a freelancer and I'm going to make money by myself, because that is not likely to happen, right? Let me know in the comments what you think, if you agree, disagree, whatever. I would love to hear your opinion on this. Thank you so much. I'll see you around. Let's go.